Chapter 1. Once more he breathed the air of freedom, but there was stifling dust in the air, almost unbearable heat, and no one was waiting for him. Nothing but his blue suit and gym shoes. As the prison gate and its unconfessable miseries receded, the world, streets belabored by the sun, careening cars, crowds of people, moving or still, returned. No one smiled or seemed happy. But who of these people could have suffered more than he had with 4 years lost, taken from him by betrayal? And the hour was coming when he would confront them, when his rage would explode and burn, when those who betrayed him would despair unto death, when treachery would pay for what it had done. Nabawiah, Ilish, your two names merge in my mind. For years you will have been thinking about this day, never imagining all the while that the gates would ever actually open. You'll be watching now, but I won't fall into the trap. At the right moment, instead, I'll strike like fate. And Sana? What about Sana? As the thought of her crossed his mind, the heat and the dust, the hatred and pain all disappeared, leaving only love to glow across his soul as clear as rain-washed sky. I wonder how much the little one even knows about her father. Nothing, I suppose. No more than this road does, these passers-by, or this molten air. She had been out of his thoughts. She had never been out of his thoughts, where bit by bit she'd taken shape like an image in a dream for 4 long years. Would luck now give him some decent place to live, where such love could be equally shared, where he could take joy in being a winner again, where that Nabawiah Ilish had done would be no more than a memory, odious but almost forgotten? You must pull together all the cunning you possess to culminate in a blow as powerful as your endurance behind prison walls. Here's a man who can dive like a fish, fly like a hawk, scale walls like a rat, pierce solid doors like a bullet. How will he look when he first sees you? How will his eyes meet yours? Have you forgotten, Ilish, how you used to rub against my legs like a dog? It was me, wasn't it, who taught you how to stand on your own 2 feet, who made a man of a cigarette butt cadger. You've forgotten, Ilish, and you're not the only one. She's forgotten too. That woman who sprang from filth, from vermin, from treachery and infidelity. Through all his darkness, only your face, Sana, smiles. When we meet, I'll know how I stand. In a little while, as soon as I've covered the length of this road, gone past all these gloomy arcades, where people used to have fun, onward and upward, but not to glory. I swear I hate you all. The bars have shut down and only the side streets are open where plots are hatched. From time to time, he has to cross over a hole in the pavement, set there like a snare, and the wheels of streetcars growl and shriek like abuse. Confused cries seem to seep from the curbside garbage. I swear I hate you all. Houses of temptation, their windows beckoning, even when eyeless, walls scowling where plaster has fallen. And that strange lane, Al Sarafi Lane, which brings back dark memories, where the thief stole then vanished, whisked away. Woe to the traitors. Where police who staked out the area had slithered in to surround you. The same little street where a year before you'd been carrying home flour to make sweetmeats for the feast, that woman walking in front of you carrying Sana in her swaddling clothes. Glorious days, how real they were, no one knows. The feast, love, parenthood, crime, all mixed up with this spot. The great mosque and, beyond them, the citadel against the clear sky. Then the road flowing into the square where the green park lies under the hot sun and a dry breeze blows, refreshing despite the heat. The citadel square with all of its burning recollections. What's important now is to make your face relax, to pour a little cold water over your feelings, to appear friendly and conciliatory, to play the planned role well. He crossed the middle of the square, entered Imam Way, and walked along it until he came close to the 3-story house at the road where two little streets joined the main road. This social visit will tell you what they've got up their sleeves, so study the road carefully and what's on it. Those shops, for instance, where the men are staring at you, cowering like mice. Syed Maran, said a voice behind him. How marvelous! He let the man catch up with him. They said hello to each other, hiding their real feelings under mutual grins. So the bastard has friends. He'll know right away what all these greetings are about. You're probably peeking at us through the shutters right now, Ilish, hiding like a woman. I thank you, Mr. Bayaza. People came up to them from the shops on both sides of the street. Voices were loud and warm in congratulation, and Saeed found himself surrounded by a crowd. His enemies' friends, no doubt, who tried to outdo one another in cordiality. Thank God you're back safe and sound. All of us, your close friends, are overjoyed. We all said we wish you'd be released on the anniversary of the revolution. I thank God and you, gentlemen, he said, staring at them with his brown almond shaped eyes. Bayaza patted him on the shoulder. Come into the shop and have a cold drink to celebrate. Later, he said quietly, when I'm back. Back? One man shouts, directing his voice to the second story of the house. Mr. Illish! Mr. Illish, come down and congratulate Syed Maran. No need to warn him, you black beetle. I've come in broad daylight. I know you've been watching. Back from what? Said Bayaza. There's some business I have to settle. With whom? Said Bayaza. Have you forgotten I'm a father and that my little girl's with Illish? No, but there's a solution to every disagreement in the sacred law, and it's best to reach an understanding, said someone else. Syed, you're fresh out of prison, a third man said in a conciliatory tone. A wise man learns his lesson. Who said I'm here for anything other than to reach an understanding? On the second story of the building, a window opened. Illish leaned out, and they all looked up at him tensely. Before a word could be said, a big man wearing a striped garment and police boots came from the front door of the house. Saeed recognized Hasbullah, the detective, and pretended to be surprised. Don't get excited. I have come only to reach an amicable settlement, he said with feeling. The detective came up and patted him all over, searching with practiced speed and skill. Shut up, you cunning bastard. What did you say you wanted? I've come to reach an understanding about the future of my daughter. As if you knew what understanding meant. I do indeed, for my daughter's sake. You can always go to court, Illa shouted from above. Let him come up. Come up, all of you. You're all welcome. Rally around you, coward. I've only come to test the strength of your fortifications. When your hour arrives, neither detective nor walls will do you any good. They all crowded into a sitting room and planted themselves in sofas and chairs. The windows were open, flies rushed in with the light. Cigarette burns had made black spots in the sky blue carpet, and from a large photograph on the wall, Illish, holding a thick stick with both hands, stared out on the room. The detective sat next to Saeed and began to play with his worry beads. Illish Sidra came into the room, a loose garment swelling around his barrel-like body, his fat round face buttressed by a square chin. His huge nose had a broken bridge. Thank you, Lord. Thank the Lord you're back safe and sound, he said as if he had nothing to fear. But no one spoke. Anxious looks passed back and forth, and the atmosphere was tense until Illish continued. What's over is done with. These things happen every day. Unhappiness can occur, and old friendships often break up. But only shameful deeds can shame a man. Conscious that his eyes were glittering, that he was slim and strong, Saeed felt like a tiger, crouched to spring on an elephant. He found himself repeating Illish's words. Only shameful deeds can shame a man. Many eyes stared back at him. The detective's fingers stopped playing with the beads, realizing what was passing in their minds. He added as an afterthought, I agree with every word you say. Come to the point, the detective broke in, and stop beating around the bush. Which point? Saeed said innocently. There's only one point to discuss, and that's your daughter. And what about my wife and my fortune? You mangy dogs. I'll show you. Just wait. How I'd like to see now the look you'll have in your eyes. It would give me respect for beetles, scorpion, and worms, you vermin. Damn the man who lets himself be carried away by the melodious voice of women. But Saeed nodded in agreement. One of the sycophants said, Your daughter is in safe hands with her mother. According to the law, a 6-year-old girl should stay with her mother. If you like, I could bring her to visit you every week. Saeed raised his voice deliberately so that he could be heard outside the room. According to the law, she should be in my custody in view of the various circumstances. What do you mean? Illish said, suddenly angry. Arguing will only give you a headache, said the detective, trying to placate him. I have committed no crime. It was partly fate and circumstances, partly my sense of duty and decency that drove me to do what I did, and I did it partly for the sake of the little girl. A sense of duty and decency, indeed, you snake. Double treachery, betrayal and infidelity. Oh, for the sledgehammer and the axe and gallows and rope. I wonder how Sana looks now. I did not leave her in need, Saeed said as calmly as he could. She had my money and plenty of it. You mean your loot, the detective roared, the existence of which you denied in court. All right, call it what you like, but where has it gone? There wasn't a penny, believe me, friends, Ilish protested loudly. She was in a terrible predicament. I just did my duty. Then how have you been able to live in such comfort? Said challenged, and spend so generously on others. Are you God, that you should call me to account? Peace, peace, shame the devil, Saeed, said one of Ilish's friends. I know you inside out, Saeed, the detective said, slowly. I can read your thoughts better than anyone. You will only destroy yourself. Just stick to the subject of the girl. That's the best thing for you. Saeed looked down to hide his eyes, then smiled and said in a tone of resignation, You're quite right, officer. I know you inside out, but I'll go along with you, out of consideration for the people here. Bring the girl, someone. Wouldn't it be better to find out first what she thinks? What do you mean, officer? Saeed, you know. Saeed, I know you. You don't want the girl, and you can't keep her, because you'll have difficulty finding some accommodation for yourself. But it's only fair and kind to let you see her. Bring in the girl. Bring in her mother, you mean? How I wish our eyes could meet, so I might behold one of the secrets of hell. Oh, for the axe and sledgehammer! Ilish went to fetch the girl. At the sound of returning footsteps, Saeed's heart began to beat almost painfully, and as he stared at the door, he bit the inside of his lips, anticipation and tenderness stifling all his rage. After what seemed 1,000 years, the girl appeared. She looked surprised. She was wearing a smart white frock and white open slippers that showed henna-dyed toes. She gazed at him, her face dark, her black hair flowing over her forehead, while his soul devoured her. Bewildered, she looked around at all the other faces, then particularly at his, which was staring so intently. He was unable to take his eyes off her. As she felt herself being pushed toward him, she planted her feet on the carpet and leaned backward away from him. And suddenly, he felt crushed by a sense of total loss. It was as if, in spite of her almond-shaped eyes, her long face, and her slender, aquiline nose, she was not his own daughter. Where were the instinctive ties of blood and soul? Were they, too, treacherous, deceptive? And how could he even so resist the almost overwhelming desire to hug her to him forever? This is your father, child, said the detective impatiently. Shake hands with Daddy, said Ilish, his face impassive. She's like a mouse. What's she afraid of? Doesn't she know how much I love her? He stretched out his hand toward her, but instead of being able to say anything, he had a fit of choking and had to swallow hard, managing only to smile at her tenderly, invitingly. No, said Sanab. She backed away, trying to steal out of the room, but a man standing behind stopped her. Mommy, she cried, but the man pushed her gently and said, Shake hands with Daddy. Everyone looked on with malicious interest. Saeed knew now that prison lashings had not been as cruel as he used to think. Come to me, Sana, he pleaded, unable to bear her refusal any longer, half standing and drawing closer to her. No, she shouted. I am your daddy. She raised her eyes to Ilish Sidra in bewilderment, but Saeed repeated emphatically, I am your daddy. Come to me. She shrank back even further. He pulled her toward him almost forcibly. Then she screamed, and as he drew her closer, she fought back, crying. He leaned forward to kiss her, disregarding his failure and disappointment, but his lips caught only a whirling arm. I'm your daddy. Don't be afraid. I'm your dad. The scent on her hair filled his mind with the memory of her mother. He felt his face go hard. The child struggled and wept more violently, and finally the detective intervened. Easy, easy. The child does not know you. Defeated, Saeed let her run away. I will take her, he said angrily, sitting bolt upright. A moment of silence passed, at the end of which Bayaza said, Calm yourself first. She must come back to me. Let the judge decide that, the detective said sharply, then turned questioningly to Ilish. Yes? It has nothing to do with me. Her mother will never give her up, except in compliance with the law. Just as I pointed out at the beginning, there's no more to be said. It's up to a court of law. Saeed felt that if once given vent, his rage would be unrestrainable, and therefore, for the supreme effort, he managed to keep it under control, reminding himself of things he had almost forgotten. Yes, the court of law, he said as calmly as he could. And as you can see, the girl is being very well looked after, said Bayaza. First, find yourself an honest job, the detective said with an ironic smile. Able now to control himself, Saeed said, Yes, of course. All that's quite correct. No need to be upset. I'll reconsider the whole affair. The best thing would be to forget the past and start looking for a job to provide a suitable home for the child when the time comes. During the surprised silence that followed this speech, glances were exchanged, some incredulous, some perhaps not. The detective gathered his worry beads into his fist and asked, Are we finished now? Yes, Saeed answered. I only want my books. Your books? Yes. Most of them have been lost by Sana, Ilish said loudly, but I'll bring you whatever is left. He disappeared for a few minutes and returned, carrying a modest pile of books which he deposited in the middle of the room. Saeed leafed through them, picking up one volume after another. Yes, he remarked sadly, most of them have been lost. How did you acquire all this learning? The detective said with a laugh, rising to signal the end of the meeting. Did you steal reading matter as well? They all grinned except Saeed, who went out, carrying his books.